In 1942, the once invincible German panzer divisions were facing immense difficulties, with their strategic reserves nearly depleted. The Allies, with their more robust and deadly tanks, were ready to challenge Nazi dominance on the battlefields. In a desperate move to change the course of the war, Adolf Hitler brought back Heinz Guderian, the mastermind behind the Blitzkrieg, who had been sidelined. Guderian's mission was colossal. Along with Albert Speer, the Minister of Armaments, he began an audacious overhaul of Germany's tank production lines. Any project that could not be quickly sent to the front lines was discarded without hesitation. When they were on the verge of canceling the Jagdpanzer IV project, Hitler intervened personally. The Führer, relying on information about similar war machines, believed that the Jagdpanzer IV would be the Reich's ace in the hole in tank confrontations. With robust armor and a streamlined profile, this tank destroyer was a formidable threat on any battlefield. Equipped with a high-velocity 75mm cannon, it could pierce enemy armor from miles away, while its V-shaped hull easily deflected enemy fire. To Hitler, this tank destroyer was a decisive trump card. Despite warnings from Speer and Guderian about the strain this monster would place on Panzer IV production, Hitler did not back down. He accelerated production, and thus, the Jagdpanzer IV was thrown into the heat of battle on multiple fronts, exemplifying Hitler's erratic military decisions. 3 years into the conflict, the German military was cornered, urgently needing more robust armored vehicles to face the increasingly powerful tanks of the Allies and the Soviet Union. The war, fueled by desperation and rapid technological advances, was ripe for innovation. In this context, the Jagdpanzer IV project emerged, a fearsome tank destroyer intended to turn the tide in favor of the German Wehrmacht. The suspense grew with each new battle. Allied tanks advanced with force, but the Germans hoped the Jagdpanzer IV could be the key to reversing their fortunes. The battles were intense, each confrontation filled with tension and anticipation. Soldiers on both sides knew that each combat could be decisive for the outcome of the war. The Jagdpanzer IV, with its high-velocity cannon and nearly impenetrable armor, proved to be a formidable adversary. Reports of battles reached Hitler's ears, who saw in this tank destroyer the possibility of victory. However, the reality on the battlefield was brutal. The Allies continued to press, and Jagdpanzer IV production could not keep up with the demand. The tank warfare became increasingly fierce, and Germany, despite desperate efforts, began to feel the weight of Allied resistance. The suspense on the battlefields was constant, with each advance and retreat affecting the troops' morale. Nights were filled with the sound of cannons and the hope that dawn would bring a change of fortune. Meanwhile, in the factories, workers gave their all to produce more Jagdpanzer IVs, knowing that each unit could make a difference. The tension was palpable, and the war's fate seemed to hang by a thread. The story of the Jagdpanzer IV is a testament to desperation and innovation in wartime, where every decision, every battle, carries the weight of nations' futures. The struggle for supremacy on the battlefields continued, and the world awaited, anxiously, the unfolding of these dramatic events. In 1942, the German armored divisions, once the undisputed champions of the Blitzkrieg, faced a harsh reality. The powerful tanks that had once dominated Europe were now being hunted by the heavier and more sophisticated armor of the Allies. The bloody battles in Stalingrad and the confrontations on the Eastern Front highlighted the urgent need for war machines capable of taking on the feared Soviet T-34 tanks. The previous year, in 1941, the Wehrmacht's arsenal was struggling against the T-34s. The ensuing confusion in the following year led to the creation of new equipment designed to combat Soviet power. Time was short, resources were scarce, and there was no way to develop an entirely new anti-tank weapon from scratch. The Germans had in their possession an arsenal of Soviet field guns captured in earlier battles, as well as outdated armored vehicles gathering dust. The solution seemed obvious: mount the powerful Russian guns on the available old Panzer chassis. During the invasion of the Soviet Union, Germany managed to capture a significant number of high-velocity 75 and 88mm guns, powerful enough to destroy the feared T-34s. However, there was a problem. These large guns were slow and struggled to keep up with the pace of the armored cavalry. The solution found was to weld these guns onto the bodies of aging panzer units, providing a quick and efficient answer to Germany's armor problems. With this urgent need, a series of projects began to be developed, including the Panzerjäger series and the Marder line of tank destroyers. The urgency and pressure to counter the Soviet tanks created a climate of tension and suspense among the German engineers and military personnel. Each new project was a gamble in a crucial battle. The production lines worked day and night, with everyone aware that each tank sent to the battlefield could make the difference between victory and defeat. The first prototypes of the Marder series began rolling out of the factories, carrying the hope of turning the tide of the war. Soldiers and officers looked with anticipation at these new war machines, hoping they would be the answer to the feared T-34s. With each confrontation, the tension increased. The 75 and 88 mm guns proved effective, but the battle was far from over. Meanwhile, on the front lines, soldiers faced the enemy with bravery, relying on the new weapons they had been given. The battles were intense, and each advance or retreat on the battlefield was deeply felt. Stories of heroism and sacrifice spread, boosting the morale of the troops and their determination to win. The tank warfare continued fiercely, with each side trying to outdo the other in technology and strategy. The pressure to produce more and better war machines did not relent. Germany knew it needed to keep innovating if it wanted any chance of winning the war. The story of these tanks, the engineers who designed them, and the soldiers who operated them is a narrative of desperation, innovation, and courage. Each battle was fraught with suspense, and the tension was ever present, reminding everyone that the war was not just a matter of firepower, but also of determination and resilience. Each step in the development of the tanks pushed the German military closer to their objective, but there were still many challenges to overcome. Problems such as slow movement, fragile armor, and insufficient firepower persisted. On May 18, 1942, the German Minister of Armaments and Munitions issued a challenge to the Heereswaffenamt to create a new self-propelled anti-tank gun, tailor-made to face the feared Soviet tanks. The project proposed combining the battle-tested chassis of the Panzer IV with a robust anti-tank gun, all encased in a sleek, low-profile superstructure. Thus was born the mission of the Jagdpanzer IV, an implacable tank hunter. However, the path to its mass production was fraught with obstacles. When Heinz Guderian, the strategist behind the Blitzkrieg, was called back to boost Germany's armored forces, he found a chaotic situation. The German war machine was overloaded, trying to balance various new tank and armored vehicle projects. Although ambitious, these projects were challenging to manage under the constant pressure of the war. Together with Albert Speer, the Minister of Armaments and War Production, Guderian made a crucial decision: to eliminate the clutter. They decided to focus on the production of machines that could be mass-produced and quickly sent to the battlefield. Initially, the Jagdpanzer IV did not receive much attention from Guderian and Speer. They feared it might interfere with the production of the Panzer IV, considered the backbone of Germany's armored forces. Tension was in the air. Every meeting, every decision carried enormous weight. The future of Germany's armored forces depended on these choices. Guderian and Speer knew that any mistake could be fatal. But the pressure for quick and effective results was immense. Meanwhile, on the production line, workers strove to bring the Jagdpanzer IV to life. Expectations were high. Soldiers and officers eagerly awaited the new tank hunter, hoping it could change the course of the war. Every test conducted, every adjustment made, was a step toward a new kind of military power. Suspense grew as the launch date approached. Everyone knew that the success of the Jagdpanzer IV could mean a turning point in the conflict. The atmosphere was charged with emotion and anticipation. What was at stake was not just a war machine, but the hope of thousands of soldiers fighting on the front lines. Finally, the Jagdpanzer IV was introduced to the battlefield. Its presence brought new vigor to the German troops. Equipped with a powerful gun and a robust structure, it quickly stood out in combat. With each victory, confidence in Germany's armored forces grew. However, the war was far from won. The suspense and excitement did not diminish. Each battle was a test for the Jagdpanzer IV and German strategy. Decisions made in offices in Berlin echoed on the battlefields, where life and death hung in the balance. The fate of the war remained uncertain, but the determination to fight to the end was unwavering. The story of the Jagdpanzer IV is a narrative of innovation, challenge, and courage. Every technological advance, every strategy planned, was part of a larger struggle. Moreover, with the Stu-G3 tank destroyer already demonstrating its efficiency in the field, German authorities attempted to ramp up its production. To them, introducing a new model, especially one without a turret, seemed like an unnecessary complication without offering real advantages over the already tested models. That was when Adolf Hitler intervened decisively. Impressed by the destructive success of the Stu-G3, he placed all his bets on the Jagdpanzer IV, envisioning it as the successor to the Panzer IV, with even more devastating anti-tank firepower. Ignoring the well-founded resistance from Guderian and Speer, Hitler ordered the mass production of the Jagdpanzer IV to be accelerated to the maximum. His order was clear. This new tank destroyer was to lead the attacks and had the potential to change the course of the war. From its conception to its deployment in battles, the trajectory of the Jagdpanzer IV was marked by achievements, obstacles, and an intense focus on facing the tactical challenges of the constantly changing battlefronts during World War II. The engineers who developed the Jagdpanzer IV made a strategic choice by using the chassis of the Panzer IV, balancing tactical and practical advantages. This decision allowed the use of established manufacturing techniques and existing parts, efficiently increasing the tank's destructive capacity. The brilliance of the Jagdpanzer IV lay in its superstructure. By abandoning the traditional turret for a fixed gun configuration, the engineers reduced its profile, making it harder to detect, an essential feature for a hunter lurking in the shadows, ready to strike enemy tanks. This design was not just about stealth, it was a calculated combination of tactical knowledge and manufacturing intelligence, aiming to create a low, resilient anti-tank specialist. Tension mounted as the engineers worked to perfect the Jagdpanzer IV. Every adjustment, every improvement was crucial to ensure it was ready for the battlefield. The pressure was immense, knowing that the success of this new tank could determine the future of the German forces. Finally, the moment to deploy the Jagdpanzer IV arrived. The troops waited anxiously, aware that this new machine could be the key to turning the tide of the war in their favor. Every soldier, every officer, felt the weight of expectation and the urgency of victory. When the Jagdpanzer IV entered combat, it lived up to the expectations. Its low profile and powerful gun allowed it to surprise enemy tanks, wreaking havoc on adversary lines. The excitement among the troops was palpable with each victory. Every enemy tank destroyed boosted confidence and morale. However, the war was relentless, and the challenges persisted. The battle for supremacy on the battlefields was fierce, and the Jagdpanzer IV had to prove its worth repeatedly. With each confrontation, the machine demonstrated its resilience and lethality, but the war was far from over. The journey of the Jagdpanzer IV, full of tension, challenges, and victories, became a symbol of Germany's desperate struggle for an edge in World War II. The determination of the engineers and the courage of the soldiers operating the tank reflected the hope of changing the course of history, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The story of the Jagdpanzer IV is a narrative of innovation, challenge, and perseverance. Every technological advance, every implemented strategy was part of a larger battle, where each decision, each movement could mean the difference between victory and defeat. The war was a race against time, and Germany was determined to do whatever it took to achieve victory. By losing the turret, the Jagdpanzer IV gained a lower profile, making it a difficult target to detect and even harder to hit. This feature was essential for a machine designed to ambush enemies. Additionally, this configuration simplified the production line, a vital factor when resources were scarce and the demand for war machines was high. With initial armor more robust than its turreted counterparts, the Jagdpanzer IV could withstand significant impacts and continue operating, especially in defensive setups where it could camouflage and wait for the enemy. However, its fixed gun meant that to fire, it had to move its entire body, a clear disadvantage in the heat of battle or when threats came from multiple directions. This limitation shaped its role on the battlefield, requiring precise tactical movements to maximize its strengths and minimize its weaknesses. The superstructure of the Jagdpanzer IV was a true fortress on tracks, especially at the front, where 80 millimeters of sloped armor acted as a shield against incoming projectiles. This design wasn't just about adding more metal. It was the result of meticulous engineering to deflect shots that struck its surface, a significant advancement over the vertical armor plates of previous war vehicles. Essentially, the Jagdpanzer IV was built to be an enemy tank's worst nightmare. Initially armed with the 75mm Pak 39L/43 gun, and later upgraded to the Pak 42L/48, it was a predator designed to pierce enemy armor like a hot knife through butter. The selection of these guns was a delicate balance between delivering devastating blows and ensuring they fit into the tight spaces of the Jagdpanzer without compromising its stability or performance. The tension was palpable in the factories and on the assembly lines. Each piece fitted into the Jagdpanzer IV represented renewed hope for the German forces, who saw in this vehicle a chance to turn the tide of the war. The engineers worked tirelessly, aware of the pressure to deliver a machine that could make a difference on the battlefield. When the Jagdpanzer IV was finally sent to the front lines, expectations were high. The troops eagerly awaited to see how it would perform against the feared enemy tanks. Every move was carefully planned, every ambush executed with precision. The suspense in the trenches was almost unbearable, but when the Jagdpanzer IV destroyed its first enemy tank, the excitement among the soldiers was overwhelming. News of the initial victories spread quickly, boosting the troops' morale. The Jagdpanzer IV proved to be a formidable machine, capable of turning the tide in crucial battles. However, the war was far from won, and challenges continued. In each confrontation, the effectiveness of the Jagdpanzer IV was tested to its limits. The tension between the need for constant innovation and the brutal reality of the battlefield was a constant presence. Despite the successes, the challenges were numerous. Modern warfare was a race against time, and each victory was accompanied by new obstacles. But the Jagdpanzer IV stood as a symbol of resilience and strength, a testament to the ingenuity and determination of the German forces. Every soldier operating this machine felt the weight of responsibility and the hope that with the Jagdpanzer IV by their side, victory might be within reach. The saga of the Jagdpanzer IV is a story of innovation, challenges, and the relentless fight to achieve battlefield supremacy. Every battle, every victory, every defeat, all were part of a larger struggle, where every decision and every move were crucial. The war was unforgiving, but the determination to win, personified in the Jagdpanzer IV, remained unshakable. The Pak 42L/70 model, in particular, made the front of the Jagdpanzer IV heavy, earning it the nickname Guderian's Duck due to its clumsy handling on rough terrain. The rush to production, driven by Hitler's urgent deadlines, required navigating a minefield of material shortages, increasingly skilled labor demands, and the constant threat of Allied bombers. These challenges spurred ingenuity in design. For example, steel replaced rubber on the wheels as supplies dwindled, and reducing the number of return rollers helped save resources without compromising the machine's agility. This quest for efficiency led to innovations like the use of large, puzzle-like armor plates, streamlining the construction process and reinforcing the tank structure. Despite arriving on the battlefield years after the first shots of 1939, in 1944, the Jagdpanzer IV quickly gained a reputation for exceptional performance and reliability. It held its own against Allied tanks in the final chapters of World War II. This tank destroyer made its mark with the Panzer and SS Panzer divisions, leaving a legacy from the beaches of Normandy to the frozen Eastern Front against Soviet forces. In the heat of battle, the standout features of the Jagdpanzer IV, such as its robust frontal armor and low, sleek profile, made it a formidable adversary for enemy gunners. These advantages, combined with the devastating power of its main gun, allowed it to excel in the art of ambush, delivering crippling blows to enemy tanks before disappearing back into the shadows. Its design philosophy was clear: strike hard, stay hidden, and become the bane of Allied and Soviet tank crews. However, the race to get the Jagdpanzer IV onto the battlefield was marked by immense challenges. The pressure to produce quickly, combined with material shortages and constant bombings, meant that each unit manufactured was a testament to the tenacity and ingenuity of the engineers and workers. Steel replacing rubber on the wheels and reducing the number of return rollers were just a few of the adaptations made to face the brutal reality of war. When it finally saw combat, the Jagdpanzer IV proved its worth. Its ambushes were deadly, emerging from carefully chosen hiding spots to deliver precise shots that destroyed enemy tanks before they could react. With each victory, its legend grew, spreading terror among the Allied and Soviet forces that ventured into its path. The tension on the production lines, the suspense in the trenches, and the excitement of the soldiers seeing the Jagdpanzer IV in action created a rich narrative full of twists and turns. Every battle won with the help of this tank was a small triumph against the overwhelming odds that Germany faced in the final stretch of the war. And so, the Jagdpanzer IV became a symbol of resilience and innovation in desperate times. Each successful ambush, each enemy tank destroyed, was proof of the effectiveness of its design and the determination of the soldiers who operated it. Despite the many obstacles, it left an indelible mark on the history of armored combat in World War II, remembered as one of the great tank hunters of the conflict. With suspense and excitement in every engagement, the Jagdpanzer IV was not just a war machine. It was a living story of struggle, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of victory amid chaos and destruction. Despite all its strengths, the Jagdpanzer IV had its drawbacks, beyond the absence of a turret. The models equipped with the longer Pak 42L/70 cannon often became bogged down in difficult terrain. SS Oberscharfer Rudolf Roy became a legend commanding a Jagdpanzer IV, demonstrating the machine's prowess by destroying dozens of Allied tanks as part of the 12th SS Panzerjäger Battalion, within the famous 12th SS Panzer Division. Roy's final act came on December 17, 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium, the Third Reich's last major offensive on the Western Front. His end did not come through the glory of tank combat, but through the silent precision of an American sniper, who caught him off guard while he was surveying the battlefield in his Jagdpanzer IV. When pressed to perform roles beyond its original design, replacing tanks or acting as assault guns on the infantry frontline, the Jagdpanzer IV revealed its limitations, proving to be an inadequate solution for such tasks. As the war drew to a close, Germany, with its dwindling number of tanks, relied heavily on the Jagdpanzer IV, often as the only available option to counter Allied and Soviet advances into the Reich's heartland and its strongholds in Eastern Europe. Although it was a thorn in the side of the Soviet T-34s, its late arrival to the theater of war meant that it could do little to influence the outcome, especially against the relentless resistance of the post-Stalingrad Red Army. However, the story of the Jagdpanzer IV did not end with the final chapters of the war. Several units found new life in the Romanian army, renamed as TAS-T4, and remained in service until the early 1950s when they finally became obsolete. Today, the legacy of the Jagdpanzer IV is being unearthed, literally, on battlefields across Europe. Restoration efforts are breathing new life into these steel sentinels, ensuring their celebrated past and engineering marvels are preserved. They find their place in the collections of European museums, standing as silent witnesses to the tumult and valor of World War II. Suspense and excitement surround each discovery and restoration of a Jagdpanzer IV. Imagine archaeologists and military historians unearthing these formidable machines, feeling the adrenaline as the steel structure emerges from the ground, laden with history. With every piece recovered, every detail restored, it is as if a part of the past comes to life again, bringing forth stories of bravery, desperation, and ingenuity. The recovery of these machines is not just about historical preservation, but a tribute to the soldiers who fought and those who dedicated their lives to engineering and innovation during wartime. Each restored Jagdpanzer IV stands as a monument to the human spirit, resilience, and the ability to overcome adversity. Thus, the story of these war machines continues to inspire and fascinate, one chapter at a time, with each new find and each meticulous restoration. The legacy of the Jagdpanzer IV is a lasting testament to the impact of war and the importance of remembering our past to build a better future. In museums and exhibitions, these machines remain as silent guardians of a time of great conflicts and even greater sacrifices, eternalizing the memory of those who lived and fought in World War II. Although the longing never goes away, life goes on. Gradually, the pain transformed into a strength that propels me forward. I married a wonderful man who understands the importance of my mother in my life and respects my grief. He always reminds me that my mother would be proud of the woman I've become. My brother also built a beautiful family. He has 2 children, a boy and a girl, who are the joy of our family. Whenever we are together, we reminisce about our childhood and share memories of our mother. These moments bring us indescribable comfort, as if she were present in spirit. My daughter is the light of my life. Her smile brightens any room, and sometimes, I see a bit of my mother in her. Maybe it's the way she laughs or the sweetness in her eyes. I tell her stories about her grandmother, how beautiful and loving she was, and how deeply she loved us. My daughter loves these stories and always asks to hear more. Life, despite everything, continued its course. I dedicated myself to building a home filled with love and respect, inspired by the values my mother passed on to me. I worked hard to provide my daughter with everything my brother and I lacked after our mother's passing. With each achievement, I feel like I am honoring her memory. Time brought new friendships and strengthened old bonds. My friends are a tremendous support, always there in moments of joy and sadness. They know my story and respect my past. Together, we have created many happy memories that help me face difficult days. As much as the longing never fades, it has become a part of who I am. I learned to live with it, to embrace it as a constant reminder of the infinite love my mother gave me. That love is what strengthens and guides me. I still visit the cemetery where my mother is buried. I bring flowers and spend some time in silence, talking to her in my thoughts. I feel that, in some way, she hears and responds to me. These moments are sacred to me, a reminder that love transcends death. Every decision I make in life, every step I take, is influenced by my desire to honor my mother's memory. I believe that wherever she is watching over me and our family. This belief gives me the strength to continue, to face the challenges that arise, and to celebrate the joys that life offers. And so, life goes on. With longing, yes, but also with hope and determination. My mother's story, full of love and tragedy, is a fundamental part of my own story. She taught me to be strong, to value every moment, and to love unconditionally. The journey is not complete, but I continue, carrying with me the lessons and love she left behind. If you enjoyed this touching story and want to follow more stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your participation is crucial for us to continue bringing more emotional and inspiring tales. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.